Let's welcome to the stage, all the way from Montana, but based in San Francisco, Nick from Blurbity.
Not really from all the way from Montana, but news, not headlines. I'm Nick. This is Blurbity. We're introducing it to you guys. What do we mean by news, not headlines? Well, Blurbity finds the most interesting sentence from a block of content, like an article. Why this matters is it is way more interesting than the headline. It's way more impactful. It tells you a lot more about the headline. And if you don't have time to read the whole article, you can get a pretty good gist of what that article is about very, very quickly. I'd like to show you an example. These are headlines from Seth MacFarlane hosting the Oscars last week. You can see their lawmakers condemning him for disturbing jokes, degrading Oscar material. That's what the headlines tell me, but I want to know what he said. If I get the most interesting sentences from those articles, as found by our technology, I can read right there, singing about boobs during a film's rape scene. That's not good. Disgracing women. No. Risky jokes about female nudity, gays and Jews. I know exactly what he's talking about, and I don't like it. But I've been able to make my own, I've been able to figure out that on my own and not relying on the headlines for it. The headlines are never as good as the blurbs are. Here's another example. Tom Brady just signed a contract with the Patriots. That's what the headlines tell me, but I don't know anything about it. When I look at the most interesting sentences, we're calling these blurbs. I instantly can read that potentially half his market value, that's what he signed for. Why would he do that? Why would he sign for less money than he could get? Well, he freed up cap space. That's what the second blurb tells me. Probably to get better players around him. And the third blurb really brings it home. He essentially gets every dollar of his contract guaranteed in case he gets hurt. He's an old quarterback. They don't guarantee money in the NFL for anybody. All this stuff I know instantly without having to click off and read all the articles. I'm going straight to the water cooler with this stuff. I don't have to waste time reading about it. These blurbs are always better than the headlines. Another example, the Pacers-Warriors game last week. According to the headlines, a huge fight broke out. There was suspensions and there was a brawl, there was ejections. But that's not the real story. When I look at the blurbs, I actually see the writer's words. And they talk about it being just a few notches above your typical on-court flapdoodle. Flapdoodle is a great word, but it's not a fight. Stephen Curry was involved. He was actually instigating it. He doesn't even get mentioned in the headlines. And this last blurb tells me the NBA has new rules and regulations to make sure shoving matches get punished as if it were a fight. So you can see where the headlines are a bit misleading, and headlines often are. Let me show you a little bit of how this works really quickly. Every sentence in the whole article is scored by our technology. Some of them are 0. They're just not interesting. We kind of throw those out and we don't use them. We also try to match entities and use natural language processing tools to figure out what that article's about. That's kind of the upper right-hand corner, kind of pulling out those and saying this is mostly about the Golden State Warriors. We then use that knowledge that we have to find the most interesting sentence when we're looking for content about the Warriors in this case. And when we take that sentence out of this paragraph or this article and line it up with other sentences from other articles about the same topic, you end up getting a very powerful digest of what people are saying about your team or your topic right now without actually having to click through and read a lot of different things if you don't have time. I mean, this isn't replacing the article, but it's kind of standing in for it. And when you see all these lined up and you can really get an idea for all these different perspectives, you do understand a lot better what's happening around that topic. This system, this technology that runs these, that's finding these blurbs, works with other verticals as well, like politics or stock market or reviews and comments. That's really interesting to us because before you couldn't really get through 100 reviews about a product. With Blurbity, you can start to crack that code and mine some of that really good data out of there. It's also very mobile friendly. You don't have a lot of time to read on your mobile device. This, you don't need it. You don't have to click off and squint at some screen somewhere. You just get these sentences, you can read them. It's quick, you're in, you're out. One last example we're really excited about is how this could apply to a search result. You know, right now you go to a search result page and it shows you headlines that you then click on and go read. You don't quite know what you're getting. you get an artifact, which is usually the first sentence or where the keyword was. It doesn't tell you a lot. If you were to if you could see the blurbs from these articles next to them, instantly you know what people are saying about that topic. It kind of changes it from a search result page to a destination page. That's, in a nutshell, Blurbity. We find the most interesting sentences in a block of text. Come talk to us. We're under the big green sign in the demo pit, and we're open to seed round investors. Thank you.
Robert, I know that you like reading a lot and you're into this kind of stuff. What do you think?
Well, I've seen 4 companies, including one from a cute 16-year-old over in London who's doing this Sumly. And I think this is a startup competition, and it just doesn't come up to the level of the other competitors we've seen in this area. I keep looking at this area and seeing a feature, not a company. And I'm looking for somebody who's really going to come out and grab me as a new company or a new idea like Uber or Airbnb or Yammer, and I didn't quite get there with this.
Thanks, Robert. I think that with Sumly in particular, you know, they really paraphrase articles. What we're trying to build is the platform behind that runs it, and really make a system that can find correlations between large blocks of text and really start to make sense of it. There's so much content coming online every day. I don't have time to read it all. I don't have time to find it. With this system, I don't necessarily need to. I can not have to without relying on the headlines.
Except you're competing against companies that have hundreds of billions or billions of dollars of market
help
cap.
here.
Right? I use Facebook for this.
I
use Flipboard. I use other things. Right?
The disjoint is, you didn't hear his question. He was wondering, why is it not as compelling of a product as some of these other things? You're an API company. You're an enabling technology company. You want to give this technology to Google or the Wall Street Journal to use on their own site, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so you need to make that, in the presentation, it wasn't super clear to Robert. He thinks you're competing against Blurbity, which is a consumer product. That's different.
Well, all the others, TLDR and Sumly, are doing the API story too. I just don't believe in the space that well. I don't believe Google is going to buy you because Google has a not invented hereism. And same with Facebook. Same with I was just over at Flipboard.
Hey, Robert, I got to disagree with you. Normally, I'm very critical about these brain-dead social media types of apps. But I would much rather have this on my Google page than the garbage we get from them right now. Right? So this would be.
But how do you get Google to buy it?
Well, somehow they have to figure out how to replace that section of the Google page with their own, or maybe their front-end Google. I don't know. They have to figure that out. But it's useful. What they're doing is Twitterizing the news, right? Just because he's right that the headlines that you get on Google News are meaningless. I write headlines sometimes in my own articles, and I know how I've been trained how to make them more readable or more clickable.
I think there's something here with the Google Glass. I want short blurbs. That's why I pay attention to space. I just don't believe that you're going to get to sell it to Google or Facebook
I'd love to
or
see this a year from now. Version 3 of this product would be very useful.
So, hey, Brad, you want to get in between these two guys? Robert thinks that it's not necessary. Vivek thinks it's critical. What does Brad think?
I mean, how many engineers do you have? Do you have any traction on distribution deals? And is your go-to-market strategy to distribute via these guys? And why do you think that they'll choose you rather than doing it themselves?
We have one technical co-founder and myself, and we have a few engineers that we've been working with, but it's really just a team of 2 right now. Okay. We're very early stage. This is what you're seeing today was a proof of concept from what you're seeing in the blurbs. The backend system we've been building and trying to make robust and make it as easy to adapt to different directions, verticals, content pieces as possible. We don't have any partners right now, but we're talking with a few people that have shown a lot of interest in using this product to help them either mine content, find content, or take their content and give it to their users in a better way.
So I think the good news, bad news, is everybody agrees that there's too much noise and not enough signal. Yep. This helps us find signal, but what you're hearing Robert say, and I agree, is why you and why now?
Well, I think why now? Natural language processors are being built by people that are much, much smarter than I will ever be in these large groups, but they're also opening that research up online and letting us take advantage of it. So we're kind of standing on the shoulders of giants in a way. Why us? We really care passionately about this space, and the technology we're building is going to allow us to be very flexible. It's not about finding the most interesting blurb for sports. It's about finding a system that can find the most interesting blurb for a set of matrices or how we're doing it for whatever you need it to be for. So we think it'll be very flexible.
Go ahead, Matt.
I think we can move very quickly.
Well, maybe a better version of this, or here's an idea for you, which is that what everybody fights for is clicks, right? So when you write that headline using Vivek's example, what he's thinking, oh, how do I get people engaged so they click on it and read it, right?
Yep.
If you actually had a value proposition that you could sell to publishers, right, that, hey, we know how to distill better headlines than he can write on his own on an individual basis, hey, that's a great business. A great example is Business Insider, and probably in the past 12 months, probably the best at have realized, here's how you write compelling, sometimes maybe not truthful headlines, and they get people to click at huge numbers, and that's the battle that people are facing. So if you were a tool and you can write a better headline than I can, great. You know how much?
So doing the opposite.
That's why I like it, because I don't trust those headlines anymore, especially the the types of headlines he's talking about in Business Insider, that they're just clickbait. I'd rather have more information.
Like Business Insider was off to such a great start. It was a really interesting product, and when they sort of hit a breaking point where it was so link baiting and so ridiculous that now it's like Weekly World News. I stopped reading it.
Oh, I love it. It's TMZ for business. It's good.
So, but you like clicking on a link
and
having the result be something other than it?
No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
But my point really there is that, hey, getting that click, getting that interest, that's the battle. When you look at the Google search page, that is the battle. I want to get clicked. I don't want you to get clicked. I want to get clicked. That's the business.
But that's why I'd rather get a few more data so I can decide what to click on. Right now, it's just a losing battle. We don't know what to click on anymore.
Yeah, and these blurbs always bring out more interesting statements than the headlines. And a lot of times, the writers aren't writing the headlines.
Do you know that? Because if you actually could prove that, is that every publisher in the world will sign up.
I know, but won't they lose clicks if they give you the best information in the headline?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Get the fact. What I would do in the near term is, hey, get some facts. Right, this goes to the traction. Get actually some facts. Do you get a higher click rate, or does the publisher get a higher click rate when using your system or not? If the answer is no, you don't have a business yet. You got to fix that product. If the answer is yes, there's probably guys that would go.
Matt, what would your advice be if, like Vivek is saying, it actually turns out that the users have a better experience, but the publishers have a worse return? Then what?
That's most likely.
Well, I think there's two groups. I mean, I think that battle Business Insider is showing it right now. Business Insider's probably got a great business. I'm not advocating that that's the only way to do it, but they have a more valuable business today than they did a year ago. So there's customers that will buy it even though it might not be
I don't trust it. I used to trust it a lot more before. I don't trust it now because the headline's always sensational and they don't reflect the content of the article.
Right.
And just,
all right,
just quickly, you could do the experiment really fast. I mean, all you'd really have to do is, just like the Buffer app exists for iOS and Android, you create a version of that in Buffer, all it really does is take the headline and put a link. You would just put your shortened blurb there and see what and gather the analytics around it.
Yeah. Look, you're trying to save us time. I really appreciate that.
Exactly.
And that's a good goal. I just think you need to test, maybe some A/B tests on some properties. It doesn't matter what scale or size, and just prove that you can improve click-throughs.
Yeah. All right, let's hear it for Blurbity.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, guys.
And just a lot of people have questions about how we pick companies and what stage they're in. There are some companies here that are 3 months into their journey, other ones that are 2 or 3 years or a year of development, even in the 1.0 category. So we like to have 2-person companies that are not funded, some angel funded, some seed A round funded. We like to have a little diversity. This is one of those earlier stage ones.